We are going to be talking about customer discovery today. The goal of this lecture is to share ideas, tips, tricks, and secrets on how to best do customer discovery through in-person interviews. Now, this section is one of the main focuses of this course. Thus, it is required for all of you to complete. Yay! The customer interviews will allow you to either validate your business idea or figure out it isn't solving a big enough problem for people or isn't the solution they needed. This work will be spread over 3 weeks, and you'll be required to do 20 separate in-person customer interviews. At the end, you'll write up a pattern analysis on a reflection of your findings and application to your business idea. We'll discuss the format and contents of that paper in a future week, but for now, since we've discussed the why, let's go into how to conduct these customer interviews. The key is to get out of the building and talk to people. First, I'm going to ask that you view each of these Steve Blank videos in his Customer Discovery series. These are linked in Canvas, and it will take you less than 15 minutes to watch all 3. So not a big time commitment. There's a whole library to browse if you're interested in like what you've seen so far, but only these 3 are required here. Next, there is a required reading for this section as well. It'll take you an hour or 2 to read, and it will break down why and how we're going to be doing customer discovery and customer interviews. I'll make a point here that this is one of the 2 readings in the reflection for this week, in case if you're interested in completing that. This reading is also linked in Canvas, and as I mentioned, it will take you a bit to get through, but has some really great points to take in on how and who to interview on what. Now, let's discuss how we will connect with people outside the building for these interviews. They need to be face-to-face. You want to see their eyes light up when you mention certain ideas or things or problems, and read their nonverbal cues as well as hear their tone of voice. However, if you have a couple key individuals you want to reach who could provide you with some great feedback and ideas, I'll allow Skyping or FaceTiming there. Phone calls and emails should only be used to schedule these interviews, not to conduct them. And as Steve mentions in his first video, there is a place for surveys in some parts of business idea development, but it isn't here. So SurveyMonkey links and other sorts of things like that on Facebook or other platforms won't be accepted here for feedback, simply because your respondents won't be able to give you enough feedback through that faceless form. Okay, how do you prepare for these interviews? You need to have a purpose and a plan. Know who you want to have these meetings with and why. Each individual in these 20 required, I should mention if you want to do more, if that's okay too, you should schedule because you believe they'll add great ideas to your business or give you valuable feedback. You should also go into the interviews with a prepared list of questions. Of course, you can expand off that list as the conversation sees fit and develops, but going in with some will get you started. Make sure you're being transparent and authentic with your interviewing process. Be clear that you're not trying to sell them anything. This is key because a lot of people get turned off when you start pitching your product or service. It's important to just be getting information from them at this point about their problems and ideas. You are students learning about the market, and this is really going to help you get in the door. So if you tell them you're a UNL student taking an entrepreneurship class, they're likely to share more things with you, and they'll talk to you about their market, industry, business ideas, etc. It is important to ask for their help. And finally, come prepared to listen and learn. Set a relaxed tone and be open to surprises and insights. It may be beneficial for you to record these or at least take notes like you're doing in your shadowing project. That way you can refer back to them later and reflect on the key lessons you took away from each interview. Now, to start off these interviews, it's important to introduce yourself. Maybe mention your college, area of study, and why you're here. To learn about a specific industry, and finally, give them a hint of the business idea you want. Once again, let them know you are here to learn, not sell. Make sure you get the point across that you choose them. You're choosing them as a key individual to interview because their opinions and ideas are important. And be honest, you want to help, so tell them so. You want to help them and for them to help you. Okay, so first you need to understand their problems. You need to know your customers deeply, and that's not knowing their personal lives per se, but it's understanding their habits, what they're reading, what their day-to-day lives look like. Understand their day and where their interests and interactions lie. This will help you understand what their biggest problems are and if you're solving the number 1 problem with your business idea, number 2, or number 50. It's important to know where you are on that list and how much of a pain point you're trying to solve. This will help validate or dismiss your business idea. Next, it's important to understand how to create discussion in your interviews. Ask open-ended questions. You don't want a bunch of yes/no answers or close-ended questions. Ask things starting with who, what, why, how, should, and why not. Not is and are questions. Those will only lead you to yes or no answers. Ask what they do, what their job is like, what their pain points are, how do they currently address them, and finish with what did I forget to ask you. You can include that in future interviews, their responses there. And who else should I speak with? That's important for referrals. All of the middle section, the meat of the interview, should cater towards your industry and what you're aiming to learn about and the business idea you're researching. A couple more points. Ask for 15 minutes of their time and don't end the meeting until they do. If they're willing to talk more, you should be ready to schedule in 30 to 40 minutes in some cases. If they have the time and interest in the interview and have great ideas and opinions and feedback to share, go ahead and take them, but pull the plug on the interview if you can tell it won't have any value to your research. If they aren't the right people to be talking to, just go ahead and end the interview because you're wasting both of your time. Also, be honest with yourself. Be open-minded. Don't look for validation of your own biases. You're trying to test the hypothesis of whether there are customers out there for this business, and are there enough customers and interest to scale this business in the future, to make it full-time and to hire employees. Here are some resources to find leads and who to interview. Use LinkedIn and your social and professional network. There's also a chance to get creative with who you interview. For instance, if you want to start in a coffee shop, go to one of your favorites and buy a cup of coffee and ask people who are also frequenting this establishment for a few minutes of their time. The best practices for customer discovery. Meet people you don't know. Whoops. You need to get out of your comfort zone. People you know will be nice, will probably tell you what that you want to hear, and these interviews are possibly harmful because they will potentially just try to validate your own existing biases and lead you astray into solving a pain point that isn't really there for people. Or they're not willing to go out of their way to try and solve it with your business's offering. On the other hand, people you don't have a relationship with, that you don't know, won't feel the need to protect that relationship, and they will tell you the unbiased truth, which is what you're after here. Okay, now, cold calls are a must in this situation. You're obviously not going to know everyone you're talking to, and there's a few of you in this class who are new to the area and don't know many people here. So if your projected target market and where you're located now, cold calls are obviously going to be the method you go with in contacting people. You need to set up these appointments yourself. I'd suggest over the phone, but you can also reach out via email. Just make sure you keep it brief and give a short introduction into who you are. As mentioned in the videos linked above, don't approach executives too early, especially when you're solidifying your interview process and question set. Refine this question set as you go based on which questions are yielding the most beneficial information. You want to find decision makers in the company. So if you're selling to restaurants, you want to find the people who are in charge of buying and selling. The chefs are in charge of finding their own, if the chefs are in charge of finding their own ingredients, you need to target those people. But if it's the owner or manager, target them instead. This is a quick overview of the customer discovery process through customer interviews.